Much of the economic growth around Boston is driven by innovation, but growth creates even more demand for new products as well as opportunities for producers, designers, and entrepreneurs. You can find some of those products at the ongoing series of Mass Innovation Nights. The next one on May 9th is an African and African American Founders Night, hosted and sponsored by Greater Grove Hall Main Streets. To tell us about the event is the Executive Director of the Main Streets program, Ed Gaskin. Thank you very much for being with us, Ed.
Well, thank you.
When people hear a word like innovation, they start thinking of things like Vertex or Facebook, Kendall Square. But what about the kind of entrepreneurs you're going to be having at this event? What are they doing?
Well, some of them are in the same category. So, for instance, one of the companies is, because it takes a lot of work to actually recruit these, right? You have to actually go out and find them. So one of the companies that I came across is this guy. And you know how when you have a cell phone and it dies and you have those little battery chargers that recharges it? Well, he basically took the same concept and applied it to electronic vehicles. So if you're driving your electronic vehicle and it runs out of power, or you're someplace where there's not a charger, you can get this battery charge and then you could drive it to the next destination. So that's an example of an African-American guy. He's over there in Greentown Labs and raised $2 million of seed funding. And I bet there's only a handful of people in the city of Boston even know he exists. We had the same thing last year. We had a guy, MIT grad, who was taking abandoned oil wells, deep down in the ground, and converting them into geothermal power units to provide electricity for the power grid. And so those are just as innovative and just as competitive as kinds of things that any venture capitalist would look for, but most likely they won't know that these people even exist. In fact, what he said is that when he came to our event last year, it was the first time that he'd actually even been invited to speak or demo or exhibit anywhere.
Well, what goes on at these events? Because, I mean, I picture a bunch of people in a room sort of hobnobbing and looking at things. What's the value of that?
Well, there's a couple different things. It depends on what your agenda is for being there and the agenda of the company that's hosting the event. So typically some of the companies in this area, all the big tech companies that you know of, they might do it because they might do it as a recruiting event. So they hold the thing at their facilities, they get all these tech kind of people come to their thing, they tell them about the job opportunities and things like that. You'll have other ones that will do it as part of branding. So they want to be known as an innovative company, they'll host the event, and this sort of extends a brand. Sometimes you'll see these chambers of commerce ones or people who have these innovation centers or incubations or accelerators, and they'll do it as a way to promote that we now have the real estate or we're open for business, etc. And so that's why what we're doing is a little bit different, because we're really none of those. We're doing it, is because we really want to provide a platform or showcase to showcase some of the African and African American founders. So just like there's a women's founders event that's very successful, we wanted to do something that was similar to that. We wanted to promote the idea of Grove Hall and innovation, help change the mindset of what people think about when they think about innovation in the community, etc. So there's been a number of different benefits and reasons that we wanted to do.
Innovation sometimes means a new way to do business we've been doing for ages, like riding a taxi. So instead we ride with Uber. One of the things you have a company talking about is a service that matches home care for seniors. Explain, how does innovation fit into that?
Well, the idea is, like using some of that with electronic commerce, you always have like supply and demand, right? So something is, let's say, an old one like eBay, there's somebody in the United States who wants to sell something. So for instance, in the past, maybe it was you had a garage sale and the people who came to your garage sale were people who drove up and down the street or saw the sign. So eBay basically took that natural. And so it's the same thing with the caregivers. You have people who need caregivers and then people who want to be caregivers, and how do you actually effectively match those? So, and again, you've seen that with pet sitting and a number of different applications. And I can already tell in the pipeline, we had one that's coming next year that matches, I think it's medical professionals. But anyway, the idea of meeting supply and demand and using technology to help facilitate that.
We're buying food from foreign countries and places. How does innovation make that work better?
Well, that one is, if I remember, that one is a subscription model. And what it does is it allows you to sample foods from different countries. So, you might be so you think about the meal kits, right? So the meal kits are primarily designed to be able to help produce these meals in, let's say, 30 minutes, whatever, and all the stuff is in a box. So think of it differently in terms of being able to sample different cuisines from different countries and having all this stuff put together. If you remember the company Birchbox a number of years ago, they used a concept like that in the cosmetics industry, where women were able to get like a sample box of different kinds of cosmetic products they could try, and then they would try something different each month for a nominal fee.
This has been in the news, and we're talking with Ed Gaskin from Greater Grove Hall, Main Street. Ed, what about Grove Hall? I mean, are you trying to make Grove Hall a sort of a hub for innovation? Maybe is it already something like that?
Well, part of the issue was, let's say if you have an issue like, let's say, take gentrification. And so what you're going to do like rent control, or you're going to do more affordable housing. You're never going to be able to build enough affordable income housing and stuff like that. And then what you'll hear some of the millennials who say, like, I grew up in this neighborhood, but now I'm priced out. I can't live in the same place I grew up. So the opposite of trying to keep the prices down and build more affordable housing is trying to make sure that people have enough income and wealth that they can actually either stay in the community or could afford to buy something in the community. And again, the difference is thinking about what I would say is a mindset versus skill set. Often what they'll think about is in terms of STEM and STEM education as a way to get a job, like workforce development. And obviously if you get a job in a lot of high-tech companies, they have nice salaries, they have full benefits and all those kind of things, but it would allow you to actually stay in the community. But there's an additional thing, and that's where the entrepreneurship part comes in. Because the entrepreneurship allows you to actually create wealth, like real wealth. And so the idea is, for instance, one time I was in a school, one of the schools, and all the kids there were African American, and they were in a coding class learning how to make computer games. And I went to video games. And I went to every student one-on-one as I saw a demo of their game, and I asked them, had they ever thought about starting their own company? And they all said no. In their mind, if they could just get past this class, then they would be a candidate for getting a job in industry. And I can guarantee you that if I was in Kendall Square in any coffee shop or whatever, and I said, "Had you thought about starting your own company?" the answer would probably be yes, more often than no.
I'm interested.
But anyway, the point is that the mindset of entrepreneurship in that versus the skill set.
I'm curious about the motivation for these entrepreneurs, especially the people that you're going to have at this event. I mean, I'm sure they all want to make money because all innovators want to do that. But what about their engagement with the community? Is that an important part of what drives them, you think?
So it depends on what type of problem they're trying to solve. So you'll see a number of the entrepreneurs who are specifically, like there's one there that's focusing on helping STEM education for black girls and women. My first year we had a company there that focused on black girls nutrition, right? Very niche, very focused product. Couldn't be more integrated in the community. And then you'll have people who are focusing on more global issues, more, like clean tech or ed tech or something like that, that it wouldn't matter where they were. What they're solving, the problem they're solving is larger than a community problem.
Well, there's another company that's going to be at this event, Niche Technologies. It sounds pretty generic, but I guess that could have some local applications too.
Yes, I think they have all kinds of, and I'm dying to see what they have, but I think that they remind me of like a Mr. Fix-It with all kinds of parts and supplies and things like that, and actually trying to build custom solutions for people.
So, this is a whole series of innovation nights. It's not just in Grove Hall, it's all around the state. When you add this up, what does this do for the economy, you think?
Well, I'm not a great spokesperson for Mass Innovation Nights, but they will tell you, I think like over $1 billion has been raised. In other words, like an investor might come to one of these nights, and I've actually now had some VCs who said, hey, I saw some stuff and I wanted to invest in there. So it could be that money is raised to help front the company. They can make networking connections. They could help launch in terms of marketing and promotion. At its core, Mass Innovation Nights was really designed to help launch and promote. So that's why they took all the social media stuff and people tweeting and promoting it. So in our first year, for instance, when we did this event, we actually trended on Twitter for the first hour of the event. So anyway, so there's several different reasons why somebody might be there, what it is they might get out of it.
Well, I can expect entrepreneurs and innovators to be there, but what about somebody who's in college, who's studying things? Should they be at an event like this too?
Well, yes, and actually we've reached out to the schools. Primarily the reason why we've reached out to the schools is because of the issue around role models. And so here you come into this venue, and again, when I used the example about the STEM, the skill set, and the mindset, so now everybody you see is African American or African, and they not only are using some aspect of technology, whether it's like working on a cancer treatment or whatever, but they actually have started their own business. And so that one works well because the students get to talk to the founders themselves, people most likely they would never see or never find because they're literally like buried all over the place. And so we've reached out to the schools because they serve almost like role models. And if it's a college student, it's very possible that they might want to do an internship at one of these places. Good reason to come. We should provide some details exactly when and where this will be happening. Well, it's actually going to be this Thursday, May 9th, and it's at at the Thelma Burns building. A lot of people remember it who are old school say, oh, that's the old Sky Cap. And it's 575 Warren Street. It's from 6 to 8:30, and I ordered the food today. So, and that's the other thing. We try to make sure all the VCs, all the experts, all the food, all the vendors, we try to at least have an event where we try to really support all the communities, the African community, everybody else like that.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me back.
Ed Gaskin from Greater Grove Hall, Main Street. We'll have more news in just a moment.